The glass walls of Helix Biomech's advanced research wing shimmered under the morning sun, throwing fractured ribbons of light across the pristine floor tiles. Everything here gleamed: stainless steel, polished screens, holographic schematics hovering midair. It was the kind of environment built to intimidate, to remind everyone who entered that genius lived here. But it didn't intimidate Dr. Elena Vargas. She stepped into the central conference arena with a quiet confidence, her lab coat crisp, black hair tied into a precise ponytail that fell between her shoulder blades. At 34, she had already spent a decade working on Project MIRIDIAN, the company's attempt to create a revolutionary neural tissue regenerator. A breakthrough technology, a multi-billion-dollar gamble, and a potential disaster if the numbers she saw last night were correct. As she walked inside, she felt the familiar sting, a room full of eyes, sharpening into judgment the moment she opened her mouth. "Morning," she said softly. Her accent, warm Dominican English, soft at the edges, musical even in its most technical phrasing, rippled through the room like an unwelcome change in temperature. 3 engineers snickered. One whispered, not quietly enough, "Here we go, Senora Equations is here to explain numbers we already know." Another added, "Does she even understand the quantum gate metrics?" They didn't know. They didn't even suspect. Because as far as they understood, Elena Vargas was just part of the analytics team, helpful, background level, non-essential. They had no idea she was the architect of MIRIDIAN, that she had written 60% of the core code, that the neural regeneration blueprint the company bragged about to shareholders had been sketched on a scrap of paper by her during a late-night coffee binge. They didn't know because she never told them. She had learned to work in silence. She had learned that the loudest people in a room rarely knew the most. And today, that silence was about to become the company's salvation or its undoing. The meeting began with Dr. Carson Miles, head of operations, pacing confidently between the holographic screens. Carson, tall, sharp-featured, always wearing suits more expensive than his car payments could justify. His voice carried a tone of ownership as though this project, one he barely understood, was his life's work. "All right, team," he said, clasping his hands, "MIRIDIAN Stage 5 integration is behind schedule. Our investors want results, not excuses." He threw a sideways glance at Elena. Subtle, disrespectful, deliberate. One of the interns raised her hand. "Sir, Dr. Vargas was reviewing the code variation from last night." Carson cut her off. "I don't need Dr. Vargas's review," he said, dragging her name with a smirk. "We have senior engineers present." Laughter rippled through the room. Elena simply adjusted her lab coat, her fingers tightening around the edge of her tablet. She inhaled once, slow and steady, letting the condescension slide over her like water. Carson continued, "Now, I want to move forward with my proposed integration patch. It's cleaner, faster. It will collapse the entire neural grid," Elena said quietly. The room froze. She hadn't raised her voice, hadn't injected anger. Just truth. Carson blinked, then forced a chuckle. "I'm sorry, what?" Elena looked up, meeting his gaze without hesitation. "Your patch destabilizes the synaptic sequencing. It will overload the entire substrate within seconds." Her accent makes it sound dramatic, one engineer whispered, grinning. "Elena," Carson said, patronizingly calm, "I think you're misinterpreting the data." "No," she said. "You are." A silence stretched. Tight. Uncomfortable. He stepped closer. "You're not qualified to make that assessment." The room murmured approvingly. "And you're not qualified to override the neural map," she answered. Carson's eyes darkened. "Dr. Vargas," he said slowly, "you don't have the authority to." "The authority?" she repeated, tilting her head slightly. Is that what you believe this is about? In her chest, her heartbeat felt like a quiet war drum. Because today, all the belittling, all the dismissive laughter, all the jokes about her accent, they were about to meet the immovable weight of truth. Carson waved her off. We're going with my patch. Vargas, sit down. He turned to the team. Run the simulation. Elena closed her eyes. They were about to see it. On the main screen, the simulation began to load. Neural pathways lit up, glowing electric blue. Stability, 100%. Then 82%. Then 54%. Then, a massive rupture of color exploded across the hologram. Error. Error. Critical failure. The entire neural grid collapsed like a dying star, flickering out in a cascade of red. The room gasped. Carson's jaw dropped. What? How? Elena opened her eyes and quietly said the words she had been waiting for. Your patch erased the synaptic bond chain. The moment the quantum stabilizer initiated, the system imploded. She didn't gloat. She didn't raise her voice. She simply delivered the truth with surgical precision. Carson stormed toward the console. Run it again. Someone must have corrupted the input. It wasn't corrupted, Elena said gently. It's flawed. The entire logic is wrong. He swung toward her. You think you know better? I don't think, she replied, locking eyes with him. I know. Carson jabbed a finger toward her. Who do you think you are? The room paused. Eyes shifted. Breaths held. Elena stepped forward, calm as a still ocean. I am, she said softly, the lead architect of Meridian. The entire room fell silent. The senior engineer, the loudest one, choked on his coffee. Carson blinked rapidly. What? I designed the neural tissue regeneration system. I built the substrate map. The grid reacts to me because I wrote its language. She tapped her tablet gently. Every holographic screen in the room responded instantly. Her login, her credentials, her protocols. A soft wash of blue-white light filled the room, the system acknowledging its creator. The whispers began. She's the architect? No way. But they said Carson. She built Meridian? She has that accent and she's the lead? Elena ignored them. Carson stumbled backward a step. That's impossible, he muttered. The board would have told me. They didn't, she said, because they knew your ego would ruin the project. A pin-drop silence followed. Carson's face reddened. This is absurd. It's the truth, Elena replied, her voice calm, steady. And the system recognizes truth. She tapped her screen again. The simulation reloaded, with her patch applied. The neural grid stabilized, glowed, strengthened, became whole. No collapse, no rupture, just perfection. The room erupted in stunned gasps. Carson stared at the hologram like it had betrayed him personally. A sharp chime split the air. The board was watching. The entire time. A massive holographic display illuminated with the emblem of Helix Biomech. A woman's voice, calm, commanding, filled the room. Dr. Vargas, she said, please stay on the line. The board has unanimously agreed to reassign full authority of Meridian to you. Carson turned white. And Dr. Miles, the board member continued, you are hereby placed under formal review for negligence and failure to disclose critical contributor information. Carson sputtered. Wait, you can't, I didn't know. That, the voice answered, is exactly the problem. The call ended. Carson collapsed into his chair, his arrogance drained, replaced with humiliation so thick you could smell it in the air. No one laughed now. No one whispered. No one questioned her accent. Elena exhaled softly. Not in triumph, but in relief. Quiet. Earned. Deserved. The team parted as she walked toward the console, their expressions a blend of shock, guilt, and awe. She didn't gloat. She didn't look at Carson. She simply placed her hand on the main interface. The system illuminated under her touch, reacting like a living thing to the presence of its creator. Neural map, stable. Synaptic flow, optimal. Tissue regeneration, successful. This was her life's work, her silent masterpiece. She tilted her head, studying the screen, speaking almost to herself. They laughed at the way I speak, she whispered. But language is not what makes someone brilliant. The neural grid pulsed softly, as if agreeing. She finally turned back to the room. This project, she said quietly, is bigger than pride, bigger than titles, bigger than accents. Her eyes swept across the crowd, scientists, engineers, interns, all staring with quiet reverence. If you want to work with me, she said, then we move forward together. Without prejudice. Without ego. With precision. No one argued. No one dared. Because in that moment, it was painfully, beautifully clear. The quiet woman they underestimated had saved everything. As she exited the lab, sunlight poured through the glass corridor, warm and golden. The world outside bustled with life, cars hovering, drones darting, people talking, unaware that history had just changed inside those walls. Elena walked slowly, each step measured, her ponytail swaying softly behind her. She didn't need applause. She didn't need validation. The systems she built recognized her. The project she saved continued because of her hands. And the people who mocked her accent would never forget her name again. Dr. Elena Vargas. Lead architect. Project savior. Quiet storm. Quantum justice delivered. And the world, as always, bowed to quiet brilliance.